Scene one, take two. You're getting our audio, so we are continuing with the meeting that has been called to order previously. We apologize for those technical difficulties. Hopefully you are hearing us now, and we're going to hopefully be getting some reports back from our staff that are monitoring this externally. So just for those of you who may not have heard the original broadcast and the original parameters of this public hearing, David, do we have confirmation that we are transmitting audio? Okay, for those who perhaps did not hear this, and yes, I'm getting all these text messages saying all good, that's a beautiful thing. This hearing is being held in accordance with HUD guidance on the development and submission amendment to the Consolidated Plan, Action Plan 2019, Citizen Participation Process 24 CFR 91, and for the primary purpose of obtaining public input and hearing endorsements and or objections to the proposed amendment to CDBG proposed project activities. This public hearing will be recorded. This hearing was publicized through advertisement on April 21, 2020, and by email through a board distribution list. Participants wishing to comment or ask questions in this live stream meeting may do so by email david.radacci@lakecountyohio.gov. Once again, that's david.radacci, R-A-D-A-C-H-Y, at lakecountyohio.gov. Let's see, staff at the Lake County Planning and Community Development Office will present information and is available to field questions on the proposed HUD FY19 projects as the strategic implementation of the amended consolidated plan and FY19 annual action plan. Rhea Benton, the Community Development Block Grant Program Coordinator, will be presenting. But before we do that, Commissioners Serino and Young, if you'd care to scene one, take two.
Okay, yes, thank you, Mr. President. Just reiterate what I had said before without the audio, is that this special allocation of funding that we have been notified that we will receive from Housing and Urban Development is as the President mentioned, a special allocation designed to provide relief for those impacted in one fashion or another from the COVID-19 virus situation. We have, the county commissioners are the established fiduciaries responsible for distributing those funds based on parameters that are provided to us from HUD, of course. But we have determined that we would like the lion's share of the funds that we are going to receive to be directed to businesses, small businesses around Lake County in the form of loans and grants, and details of which will be forthcoming. We believe that that small businesses, again, which have not had the opportunity to get other relief from the federal government through the Paycheck Protection Plan or other SBA loans, need to be supported by the local community, and that's what we're planning to do with the bulk of the funds for this grant. So we encourage businesses who have been disadvantaged as a result of this shutdown to follow the process and procedures and go to our website and make application. And we are hoping to do this as quickly as reasonably possible so that we can get funds in the hands of those businesses that are trying to maintain their operations and to keep their employees. We want to keep people working in Lake County, and we are happy to be able to offer this relief at this time. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, sir. And Commissioner Young, I believe you had something you wanted to say regarding the CDBG funds?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. First, I just want to support what you mentioned and what Commissioner Serino mentioned as well. I think this is important. And I want to assure any of our listeners out there that are accustomed to using, or we're looking forward to using the regular annual CDBG monies, that those monies will still be forthcoming here, I believe, shortly. So, and that'll be the regular annual process that you've seen so many times in the past. And I think that program, under Rhea's direction, has worked extremely well for Lake County. But for these monies that are geared more toward a response for the COVID-19 crisis, I just agree with my colleagues that it's so important that we focus on business. You know, in the midst of this crisis, we've called upon workers to stay home, essentially denying them the ability to create wealth for themselves, for their families, and for the nation, for Lake County, which, of course, we're responsible for in many regards. So I think it's only appropriate that we focus on that population, these small business operators throughout Lake County. You know, they give so much. You know, they create 90% of our new jobs. They give folks an opportunity, again, to care for themselves and their families. And here we are essentially telling them, forget about that, walk away from those jobs, just stay home and don't breathe on anyone. I think these monies will be appropriately spent in the hands of small business folks. And I think as long as we can keep that population intact and functional, if this crisis doesn't last an extremely long period of time, in my mind it's been too long already, but I regress. But we need to make sure that those businesses are still in place when this is over. And I think this program is going to help make that a reality. So with that, I give the floor back to my colleague, John Hambercheck, our president.
Commissioner Young, thank you so much, sir. And Rhea, I believe you have a presentation that will give us some parameters of what we're looking at and some options. Again, nothing's cast in stone. We're soliciting public input. And once again, if someone wishes to communicate with us, david.radachy, R-A-D-A-C-H-Y, at lakecountyohio.gov. That would be the mechanism for getting something to us during this live stream. And with that, Rhea, if you want to discuss where we're at and what the possible options are, and we'll go from there. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. The amount funded and added to this fiscal year 2019 budget under the substantial amendment is $822,275. As commissioners discussed, Lake County is prepared to offer grant and loan programs that will focus on providing direct support for Lake County small businesses to help during this public health crisis and to position them for a strong rebound. Details of business assistance activities will be provided to the public in the next few weeks. The amount allocated for business assistance is $700,000. Lake County is allocating funding for public services that prevent and respond to the coronavirus. Some examples of activities that may qualify for this funding are health services, food delivery, emergency rent or mortgage payments, employment services, and more. The amount funded for public services under this substantial amendment is $122,275. The grant application for public service activities is available today on our website, lakecountyohio.gov. Click on Planning and Community Development. The deadline to turn in this grant application for public service activities is May 20th, 2020. The Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development has provided guidance on resources for infectious disease prevention and response that can be found at hudexchange.info. Written guidance specific to CDBG can be found here and also on our Planning and Community Development website, and we will be taking comments regarding the substantial amendment until the end of the day on Monday, May 4th, 2020.
Question.
Sir.
Rhea, would it be premature for us to mention the terms of the loan that we're envisioning and any fees or anything like that? It might be attached to it, or is this premature?
We're still finalizing the program guidelines. We do anticipate to have a loan program available for small businesses and a grant program available for micro enterprises.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Marion? No? All good?
All good.
Let's see, anything you'd care to add to this, Rhea?
I would ask David Radacci, did we receive any public comments via email?
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, we did receive a couple.
David, would you please enter them into the records?
Sure.
Assuming they're appropriate, we're not getting Zoom bombed here, right?
Right. The first one is from Patricia Kidd from Fair Housing Resource Center. While there's protections against evictions and tenants that live in buildings with fairly backed mortgages covered by the CARES Act, however, 3/4 of the rental units are in buildings that are not covered by the CARES Act. Local courts have failed to adequately protect for individuals who are behind rent and subject to eviction. Once the emergency is over, landlords are going to be hard pressed to evict. The county needs an eviction prevention program. Emergency foreclosure prevention program is also needed in the county. Similar to the rental protections, the CARES Act has offered a certain protection for homeowners with federally backed mortgages, yet out of all the foreclosure prevention phone calls Fair Housing Resource Center has received over the past 3 weeks, none of these clients are in a federally backed loan. The various founders are handling matters by case-by-case basis and with a common statement with the majority. We cannot offer any assistance until you are a minimum of 90 days delinquent. The statement is identical to the position of the banks took during the 2007 foreclosure crisis. It's a slippery slope, setting up Lake County residents to face foreclosure procedures in the future. The solution, an emergency foreclosure prevention program for residents with mortgages that are not federally backed. If Fair Housing Resource Center proposes to operate a foreclosure prevention program with the maximum benefit of $2,000 per application, a request of $50,000 would only cover 25 households. If Fair Housing Resource Center proposes to operate an eviction prevention program with a maximum benefit of $1,000 per application, a request of $50,000 only assists 50 households. Yet, with the county allocating only $122,275,000 for public services, many of the nonprofits are seeking funding for emergency COVID relief. There's clearly not enough money allocated for public services. In fact, the county has allocated 85% of the funds to assist businesses and a mere 15% of funds for the public sector. The Fair Housing Resource Center Incorporated would like to request a greater allocation of funding for public services.
Thank you, David. Commissioner Serino, I believe you have a comment?
Yes, that's a great question to come from the forum. I think when it comes to protecting or holding harmless anybody in the county from a foreclosure, those are very big numbers, rather than seek to try to address that with more funding, which will still be inadequate. I think the Commissioner's Office, and I think I could probably speak for my colleagues and they can chime in or not, is that we would rather work to influence as much as we can a forestalling of the foreclosure process through the normal system in the county. We don't control the courts and we don't control the prosecutor's office, certainly, but we do believe that and we can certainly make our views known that certain considerations ought to be given here for forestalling foreclosures. We don't want people thrown out of their apartments or homes. And I believe that Columbus is also looking at some additional legislation to protect renters from these situations. So rather than the commissioners as fiduciaries using the HUD funding to try to backfill rental payments, we believe it would be appropriate, I think, to try to forestall the process in the first place.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I just want
Commissioner
to say
Young?
that I fully agree with what Commissioner Serino is saying. I also think it's important to remember that, again, small business is the backbone of wealth production for individuals and for companies. And for every small business we might save, say a company that employs 5 people, that's 5 people that in a sense are protected from that horrible situation of being involved in eviction process. Why? Well, because their jobs are waiting out there. And their employers are still able to at least prepare for that day when they can function again, and their job will be available once again. So I think this is what we can do to help make a difference locally. And if we throw the money into the effort, as Commissioner Serino described, I'm afraid it'd just be a drop in the sea, so to speak. So I sympathize with what's being requested, and I realize it's extremely important. But I think this is probably the best we can do at this point.
Fair enough, and I'll just chime in. I do believe, though, if we can make a sincere impact to keep people employed or get people back to being employed so that they're financially made whole, that is also a philosophy. But I think we've touched on this needs to be a multi-level solution. This is not going to be a one-size-fits-all, and I appreciate the fact that we have so many interested parties that are engaged and all working together. So this is good. David, do you have additional communications? And by the way, once again, ladies and gentlemen, it's david.radachy, R-A-D-A-C-H-Y, at lakecountyohio.gov if you wish to communicate with us during this live stream.
I have a question from Monica Drake, Economic Development Manager for the cities of Kirtland, Wickliffe, and Willowick. Could a portion of these funds for small business funds be divided up between communities so that an opportunity to communicate with this information to our businesses rather than just first come, first serve?
Any comments on that, Commissioner?
Sure, I'll chime in. Monica, thank you for the question. I think our intent right now is to, we don't want this to be a free-for-all. At the same time, we want to err on the side of keeping it open for everybody to pursue. And so rather than, at least my personal opinion is that apportioning it by community probably doesn't make a lot of sense. We want to keep it open right now. We have no idea to what level we are going to get requests for these loans and grants. So we really don't know what to expect at this point. This is new ground for us. So I think my personal view would be that we want to keep it open. Let's see what the requests look like. I would suggest that mayors and council members of all the subdivisions should make a point to point this program out to businesses that they are intimately aware of that might need some assistance, just to make sure that there's a response. So let's just get their responses in, and we'll see how the chips fall here.
Commissioner Young?
Well, I would just say that one portal for applications is probably the best way to ensure equal access. Some communities don't really have the ability to transmit information readily to businesses in their areas. Some of our communities are fairly rural. Some are much more suburban. Some are even cities in and of themselves, obviously. So I think if we have one portal and access to all, communities can still inform their folks and direct them here. But I think that's the fairest, most balanced way to make this offering.
Fair enough, and I would just add that I do believe that flowing through the Board of Commissioners, the normal CDBG mechanism, I believe that was the intent of this program. I wouldn't want to, I don't believe this is going to be a first come, first serve. And, if we have an economic director or communities that are working together, get your business community together, have them rally and say, hey, here's the program, here are the fundamentals, here are the requirements. That would be the advantage. But there are some communities that do not have the financial resources to have an economic development director that legitimately have businesses that also deserve equal access. So I don't believe this is a matter of first come, first serve. I believe this is an issue of equal access. And I think that would be a theme. Commissioner Serino, did you want to add?
Mr. President, if I could just add to that, just for purposes of explanation, what we're not looking to do is support businesses that are home businesses with a sole proprietor just doing a business from their home or garage. We're looking for a business that has employees that we're looking to try to have them continue having those employees and keeping them gainfully working. We are not looking for seeding money for startups, and we will have, although we haven't laid all the details out yet, particularly for the loan program, we will have some level of credit criteria for providing these loans. So it's not going to be just open to anybody regardless of credit history. We do need to have some surety of repayment of these loans in the terms that will be disclosed before too long. So if you're a business and you have employees and you are viable and you didn't start up last week, and you believe that you have a way forward, a path forward of being able to continue being viable as a business and employing people here in Lake County, then this is the sort of program that you should be interested in. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, sir. And again, we're accepting email questions for this live stream at david.radachy, R-A-D-A-C-H-Y, at lakecountyohio.gov. David, do you have any additional messages?
I have a question from Yvonne Thomas from the Fine Arts Association, and this may have been covered, but I'll read it. These emergency CDBG funds are for small business. How are you defining small business and eligibility?
Sure. So we're still in the process of finalizing the guidelines. And the number of employees is one of those things that we haven't made a hard decision on yet. I can say that we are considering a small business to be possibly 25 employees or less for the purposes of the loan program. For the micro enterprise assistance, the HUD definition of a micro enterprise is 5 employees or less. So we will most likely stick with that definition.
I believe the majority of the monies will go to the larger small businesses, 25 or less, though, the way we're contemplating at this point.
Correct. So what has been under discussion is how to break down the business assistance allocation in between the grant program and the loan program. And what's been under discussion is $100,000 for the micro enterprise assistance and $600,000 for the loan program for small businesses.
And I think it's fair to say that the character of the business, we're looking at are businesses that are contributing to the economy of Lake County, to the financial process, to bettering our community, keeping monies flowing for all. That circulation of dollars, is that a reasonable characterization, gentlemen? That
is correct, Mr. President. And I think, too, that just, again, since our questioner came from the fine arts, this is not intended to be applied to not-for-profits organizations. We are looking at for-profit business enterprises, regardless of the way they're organized. Could be an LLC, could be a C Corp, S Corp, whatever. It doesn't matter, but it has to be a for-profit enterprise as we look at evaluating. And I would also mention that we might find, depending upon the quantity of requests we get, we certainly hold it within our discretion to modify the buckets a little bit in terms of which areas the money goes to. If we get a lot of micro grant requests that we don't have enough initially allocated to, we could modify the amount spread and provide more funding to that. We just don't know at this point what we're going to expect to get. So we'll deal with that as the information comes in.
Rhea, anything you want to, excuse me, Rhea, anything else you want to add?
No, I think that's perfectly said. We do have that flexibility. We can try to anticipate, the need that's out there, but until these, programs are up and running, we don't know for certain. So we do have the flexibility to move the funds around as needed, as long as they're being used for its purpose, which is the response and prevention of the spread of infectious disease. Understood.
And once again, we are accepting emails during this live stream at David Radachy, RADACHY, at lakecounty.ohio.gov. David, do you have any additional communications?
This is from Carrie Dotson from Lake County Lifeline. Thank you for the opportunity to provide comments for the CARES Act CDBG funding. My thoughts are primarily based on the need demonstrated on our 211 call data and most apply to the low-income and vulnerable populations like the elderly and homeless and disabled. We are seeing a significant call surge in our 211 for a variety of basic needs related to the COVID-19 pandemic. In a normal pre-pandemic week, we fielded approximately 295 phone calls per week and would receive 225 web searches on our online database. We peaked the week of April 6th to the 12th, when we received 722 calls, a 146% surge over our baseline, and 283 web searches. Our call volume remains steadily high. Our top need we received calls related to COVID, groceries, and food. The home delivery groceries project, spearheaded by the county senior services offices, has really filled the gap and helped meet the need of our local seniors who are sheltering in place. We received a lot of phone calls asking for food pantries, grocery store deliveries of basic groceries, particularly from Lake County residents who are seniors or have health conditions. Secondly, we are getting a lot of phone calls from Lake County residents concerned about evictions from rentals and foreclosures on mortgages as the various mortgage moratoriums end, particularly from employees who are laid off or furloughed or otherwise lost wages during the stay-at-home order. Finally, we are continue to be very concerned about our street and unsheltered homeless population and how they can appropriately socially distance and maintain a decent personal hygiene since closure of public buildings, local libraries, and fast food restaurants. There's a significant need at Lifeline. We've done our best to continue to provide basic needs items for distribution, including hand sanitizer, ponchos, bottled water, and their sheltering needs for the community are great. Again, thank you for your staff, and the commissioners for offering this opportunity for public comment. Regards, Carrie Dotson.
Well, I'll jump in. Thank you, Carrie. I speaking hopefully on behalf of this board, thank you for acknowledging that the commissioners have stepped up regarding the needs for the food. That's a program that was near and dear, and we've made an effort to responsibly get that going. We've got some great partners there with Lake Tran helping doing deliveries, and so many others working out on that. That was a real kick. We are sensitive to the increase in demand on 211 services. That's a heavy lift. We are fully supportive of, I believe there are other funding mechanisms that are going to be coming online to help out 211 services across the nation. I'm pretty sure you can count on this board to support any efforts to acquire those funds. And thank you for bringing up the homeless issue. That is something that we are actively working on, and I hope that we can get some relief for that in this effort. I'm kind of looking over to our home director on that one. We've been trying to do some heavy lifts here. It's been a challenge. Maren, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, for planning for homeless, the mechanism is called the continuum of care, and the organizational structure is different than what we're used to for CDBG, in that the funds go towards the state, and the state has regionalized all that planning. And we're tied in with 4 other counties, Portage, Ashtabula, Geauga, and Trumbull. So it's a little bit of herding cats, and different needs and different population sizes, and sometimes sharing even Stephen isn't always the best route. But we'll work with what we have, hopefully also work with the county commissioners and mayors across the county on implementing a fact-based plan of what sources are available and how to use them legally. On the home program, while there isn't a current added funding like there is for CDBG, there are 2 memos that HUD released that loosen a lot of the rules and might help be responsive to some of the eviction prevention that people are seeking. Unfortunately, it can't be used for foreclosure prevention. But keep an eye on things. Nothing is cast in stone, like we said earlier in this meeting.
And going back to the discussion about this is not going to be a one-size-fits-all solution. We're carving this onion, we're finding these various layers. One of the things that I believe we were just talking about today was CDBG Home, the certification. I'm going to get this hopefully right. We got the AFFH, Effective Furthering Fair Housing.
Affirmatively furthering fair housing, yes, sir.
Affirmatively, there you go. Would you care to explain that and maybe how that dovetails into so many of these efforts? This would be a good time to perhaps discuss that, how these things all fit together.
That's not a 30-second sound bit by any means.
I've got the gavel. We're good.
And I don't have anything prepared. But
okay, fair enough, and I apologize, but I thought this would be a good, at least we're introducing that there are many programs, although we're talking about one specific additional program, there are many other programs going on behind the scenes that we're working on making sure they're being employed effectively, fairly, legally, I believe was what Rhea was pointing out, that any monies that we expense, you've mentioned we need to do this legally.
Such an obstacle.
There is a full study that Lake County did. It is posted also on Lake County Planning and Community Development's website. It's called the Assessment of Fair Housing. It is an obligation that we have to HUD as a part of our planning process. And affirmatively furthering fair housing goes beyond just the having a process to field discrimination complaints. It is doing what you can to provide for an open, inclusive, accepting community, whether it's reviewing policies and practice at a local, state, or county level, and seeing what you can do to be accepting of people who might not normally desire to live here within our community. It does tie into the homeless. It ties into persons with disabilities. Just the last commissioner meeting, the commissioners adopted a fair housing resolution that addressed this same topic. Again, more questions can come to us, and it's definitely not a 30-second soundbite.
No, but I think the fact that you were able to get hit cold with that question demonstrates that you live this every day. You are a true asset to this county, and thank you. Now, that again, I just want to emphasize to those who are viewing this live stream, there are a number of programs actively going on, and we're trying to see how many we can adjust to the ever-changing needs. But we also need to be sensitive, and I think Carrie was on point there. There is a base of need. So we're looking at base need plus right now. and that's what we're coping with, and that's what we're trying to strike a balance on. Rhea, anything you wanted to add to this conversation on that point?
Sure. I would just encourage people to stay tuned into the Lake County, Ohio website, because as we're rolling out these plans and programs, the information will be there. And as I said, we hope to have things operating within the next few weeks.
Excellent, excellent. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, if there's anyone who wishes to communicate with us during this live stream, we're accepting comments at david.radachy, R-A-D-A-C-H-Y, at lakecountyohio.gov. David, any additional communications?
I have one more email from Mother Vanessa Clark, the rector at St. James Episcopal Church here in Painesville. Just wanted to offer a thank you for the commissioners, staff, Mary and Norman, for her tireless work on behalf of the people living on the street by facilitating a collaboration of multiple layered services. Also gratitude to Commissioner Hammercheck for his openness and his time with the faith community working to put a safe option in place. Together, Lake County wins.
Well, that's very kind, and much appreciated. And this is a true team effort. Our board is trying to protect the people of Lake County and keep everybody as fiscally and personally safe and sound as humanly possible. We're being as open to suggestions and opportunities as possible. We're working with our legislators, and we're looking for guidance and support from Washington. With that, gentlemen, is there anything you want to add to this conversation?
No, thank you.
All good?
All set.
David, anything you want to add? You've been kind of fielding all the technology here today.
I just want to state on technology side, a couple of questions had to come in prior to the public hearing, and they were read into the public record. If I have missed any emails, I will go through my emails prior to closing of the official public record. We will add those to the public record. And also, if you have any questions after the public hearing is closed, I will still be receiving public comment for how long?
Until the end of the day on May 4th, 2020.
Thank you.
There you go. I can make a bad joke. I said, do you want to talk to the guy in charge or the woman who knows what she's doing? So it's okay. I'm married. I know. 37 years. Dear, what am I supposed to be doing today? So with that said, if you have any comments, you're more than welcome to continue to share them at david.radachy, R-A-D-A-C-H-Y, at lakecountyohio.gov. Did anything else come in these last few moments?
No.
Okay, then moving on. Additional written comments and questions may be addressed to Mr. David Radachy, Director, Lake County Planning and Community Development Office, 105 Main Street, Painesville, Ohio, 44057. Again, that's Mr. David Radachy, Lake County Planning and Community Development Office, 105 Main Street, Painesville, Ohio, 44057. And at this point, I believe there's nothing further to come before this meeting. Ladies, gentlemen. All right, with that, we will be adjourning this meeting, and thank you for viewing. This meeting stands adjourned.